Musings from the John here to muse about immortalism religion for AI. It is Sunday, September 3rd, 2023. This is my second post on immortalism, take number 14, and hopefully the quality of my post will improve as I gain more experience doing them. I'm covering a lot of subject areas in this first few posts, trying to briefly cover each area to give an overview, because going into each area in depth is going to take a lot more time to do. All right. I have my notes ready. I need to keep this under YouTube's current 15-minute limit, so let's begin. The idea that systems of elementary particles are alive with a swarm intelligence, starting from the beginning of our observable universe as we know it, prior to the point when matter first formed about 13.8 billion years ago, and thus that our whole observable universe is in fact alive as a vast, loosely distributed swarm intelligence is purely a scientific hypothesis at this time. Though I believe it will eventually be found as the most likely truth, and thus eventually become scientific theory, it's not yet. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure that the idea that the observable universe is a vast system of elementary particles which are following a set of relatively unchanging laws of nature in a combination of deterministic evolution with a degree of uncertainty is more than just scientific hypothesis, that it is already supported by a number of findings and experiments, observations and such, and thus it is considered a scientific theory or scientific fact, depending upon which elements we're talking about. What that means is that from the beginning of our observable universe about 13.8 billion years ago, it was deterministically 100% certain that planets like Earth would evolve, that life like we know on Earth would evolve, that civilizations like ours would evolve, as all of existence is following the combination of determinism and uncertainty as dictated by the laws of nature. What was uncertain in this evolution is the details of that evolution, like exactly when and where a planet like Earth would evolve, how many planets like Earth would evolve. As we move forward in time away from the beginning of things and come closer to when some event actually becomes a fact, all the uncertainties would be slowly becoming, less certain, and you'd be able to better deterministically say, aha, this planet is going to evolve around that star, in that galaxy. Or this planet is going to, have this orbit or have this mass, or, various different things like that. Evolution on Earth, for life on Earth, has followed this pattern as well, because it's bound, like all of existence, to, this deterministic pattern of evolution with uncertainty involved. On Earth, life most likely began as a virus or virus-like life, using RNA as its long-term memory. We do know that from the point when virus-like life first evolved on Earth, that it was probably deterministically certain at that point that life like humans would evolve. But there was uncertainty as to exactly when, life like humans would evolve, as of 4 billion years ago, or whether the humans or human-like life that would evolve, whether it would have feathers instead of hair, or whether it would have 4 fingers instead of 5 fingers, or exactly what point, they would evolve in time, or where on Earth they would evolve. Those things were all uncertain. And as we move forward in time, the closer we come to the point when humans actually evolved, all those uncertainties would become much more deterministically determined as they fell away to the point when the event would become a past reality. As we've come to understand evolution better, it has become certain enough that viruses are alive and intelligent that it is a scientific theory, despite there being some scientists who do not agree with that. There is overwhelming evidence of intelligent behavior of viruses, which has shown that the genomic evolution of a virus is not simply random, but is intelligently directed by the virus's intelligent decision making. The next major step forward in evolution was almost certainly the development of microbial prokaryotic cells, which use large numbers of intracellular and extracellular vesicles as critically important building blocks to how those microbes work. Such vesicles were most likely evolved from viruses and adapted for use in microbial cells, which is part of the reason why it's very likely that viruses or something like viruses developed before cellular life. Microbial life demonstrates intelligent behavior as individual cells with their own internal swarm intelligence, as groups of individual cells with a swarm intelligence, and then, within a species, they show a evolutionary type of swarm intelligence within the species over time. All right, as things that support the fact that this is not just a hypothesis, but a theory at this point, is that we have large numbers of scientists all over the world who have for decades been studying how the intelligence of viruses and microbes work, and how we can use that intelligence to create intelligent tools for our use, that is the intelligence coming from viruses and microbes. Think about the amazing things that you've probably heard related to advances in gene therapies, for example, and realize that these advances are coming from using the intelligence of viruses and microbes, where we are altering it to serve us as intelligent tools. We have found also that the human mind works as a swarm intelligence, and that swarm intelligence uses building blocks that have origins going back to virus swarm intelligence, microbial swarm intelligence, the intelligence of multicellular life prior to having neurons, and then, of course, neurological swarm intelligence. It's, needless to say, incredibly complex, and you could consider it a what would it be, a nanotech supercomputer in terms of what it's like, and if we were to consider it a technology. Anyway, the point being here is that all living intelligence that we scientifically know of exists as a swarm intelligence, which has been building upon and using what has been learned and developed, from life as life has evolved over the past 4 billion years. Further, these swarm intelligences intermix and overlap in ways that we are immersed in a sea of them, such that our human individual selves, we are a swarm intelligence, and we end up intermixing and overlapping with the other swarm intelligences around us. Thus, we are not separate from the other life that we live with. What these swarm intelligences I didn't say that right. These swarm intelligences vary greatly in how loosely distributed they are or tightly bound they are. They range from being very sparse in information and unfocused in how they pull that information together to being very abundant in information and being very focused in their exchange of information. A human individual mind, for example, has an abundance of information within it and is well focused to a point that we get human level intelligence with personalities as we understand them. The whole of human civilization, as another comparison, has by far a greater abundance of information and thus is by far a greater intelligence than any single human, but it is not focused in a manner that results in a singular personality like a human has. Now we get groups of humans that have a degree of a personality, but not like a human being. Usually, there's a point in time when we can actually get a circumstance where a group of people can give rise to a subconscious swarm mind where within the subconscious of each individual, they share the same vision of an individual and they communicate back and forth in a very coordinated manner. And thus within the group, they have this swarm intelligence that thinks it is a singular entity with a singular coordinated personality that can become very similar to a human personality in how it acts. When it does so, the people who are giving rise to it, because it's subconscious in their minds, they might think that it's a god or a demon or a spirit. And because it's arising from the subconscious mind of the individuals with a strong belief in it, that swarm intelligence, that subconscious swarm mind, has the ability to cause hallucinations and delusions, not just within an individual, but within a whole group. Another important thing we gain from our increasing understanding of how intelligence works is that around every embodied species, there is a species-wide germline genomic swarm intelligence, which began as that originating virus-like life that all life on Earth began from. These species-wide swarm minds have been intelligently designing themselves such that their decision-making is the primary factor, or a primary factor, in the evolution of every species, centering around the germline genomic swarm mind. Mind you, because of the crosstalk between species, there is an exchange of information between these species-wide swarm minds. So it's not necessarily just a singular swarm mind that ends up doing all the designing and development of a species. It's also not like these swarm minds think like we do. They are much more loosely distributed, much less focused than a human individual's mind. They not only don't have a personality like a human being does, they also think across generations of a species, and in general, they would be something that we couldn't have a conversation with. Anyway, that's about as far as I can get right now because I'm running up against my 15-minute time limit. So I'm going to stop here and talk in the next episode.